"You don't have to stop," she said, not quite looking at him. "I already called someone." Dashiell Crane had already pulled his truck onto the gravel shoulder. He left the engine running and stepped out anyway because he had been raised by a woman who told him that already called someone and don't need help were two entirely different things, and he had never forgotten the distinction. The woman was standing beside a silver sedan on the highway's edge, arms folded against the evening chill, a flat rear tire visible even from a distance. She was maybe mid-20s, dressed in the kind of neat, composed way that suggested she had come from somewhere professional. Her expression was carefully neutral, the expression of someone who had learned to receive help without appearing to need it. "I've got the jack already out," Dashiell said simply. 15 minutes. You can keep waiting for your person while I work." She looked at him for a moment, then she stepped aside. Dashiell was 33 and lived with his mother, Bertress, and his 4-year-old daughter, Lena, in a house on the east side of Carlow County that was too small and exactly right. Lena's mother had left when Lena was 18 months old, not cruelly, but with the particular finality of someone who had decided that the life she was living was not the life she wanted, and who had been honest about it, which Dashiell had eventually come to respect more than resent. Bertress helped with Lena on the days Dashiell drove his delivery route, which covered the long rural stretch of highway where, on a Tuesday evening in October, he found a silver sedan with a flat tire and a woman standing beside it with her arms folded. He changed the tire in 12 minutes. He didn't make conversation. He worked the way he always worked, steadily, without ceremony, and when he was done, he set the flat in her trunk and closed it. "Thank you," she said. The word came out with more weight than she intended, he thought, like it had been held a moment too long before releasing. "Drive safe. The spare's only good for about 50 miles. He got back in his truck and pulled away before she could offer him anything. Her name was Prosper Wayne. She was 26 years old and had been a county circuit judge for 14 months, appointed young, which meant she had spent 14 months proving to every person in every courtroom that young did not mean uninformed. Her husband had left the year before, quietly and without adequate explanation, which had taught her a great deal about the difference between people who stayed and people who only appeared to. She lived alone in a clean apartment with too many books and a window that faced a garden she hadn't planted. She drove home on the spare tire and did not think about the man with the truck beyond a mild, genuine gratitude. She had a case to review before morning. She made tea, opened the file, and worked until nearly midnight. The case was a custody dispute. A father, 33, delivery driver, living with his mother, Bertress, was petitioning for full legal custody of his 4-year-old daughter, following the mother's relocation out of state. The guardian ad litem's report was thorough. The character statements were numerous. One was from a kindergarten teacher. One was from his employer. One was from his mother, Bertress Crane, who had written in plain, unadorned sentences about her son's steadiness, his patience, his habit of showing up without being asked. Prosper read the file name again. Crane Dashiell R. She sat back in her chair slowly. She recused herself in the morning. That was never a question. She walked into her colleague Judge Aldworth's chambers before 8 and explained the situation plainly. She had an inadvertent prior contact with one of the petitioning parties and could not preside. Aldworth took the case without drama. Prosper returned to her own docket and did not mention it again. What she did do 2 weeks later, when the case had concluded, Aldworth had ruled in Dashiell's favor, full legal custody granted, was stop at the small dispatch office where Dashiell's delivery company was based and leave an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note on plain paper. It said only, "I wanted you to know that someone read every word of those character statements. The people who wrote them knew exactly who you are. So did the court." She didn't sign it with her title, just her name, Prosper. Dashiell read the note at his kitchen table with Lena asleep in the next room and Bertress watching him from across the table with the patient expression of a woman who had lived long enough to let things arrive in their own time. He didn't know who Prosper Wayne was. He looked up the name later and understood, slowly, what the note meant. That the woman on the highway had been the judge, that she had stepped away from his case because of a tire he had changed in 12 minutes on a Tuesday evening without expecting anything in return. He sat with that for a long time. He wrote back, not to her office, he wasn't sure that was appropriate, but to the dispatch address she had used, trusting she had done it that way for a reason. His letter was short and honest and took him 3 drafts to get right. I didn't stop because I expected anything. I stopped because my mother raised me to. I want you to know that whatever happened in that courtroom, Lena and I are okay, more than okay. And whoever you are when you're not in a courtroom, the person who stood on that highway and said thank you like she meant it, that person seems like someone who does things right too. Prosper read the letter on a Thursday morning before her first case. She folded it carefully and put it in the inside pocket of her robe, which was not something she had ever done before and which she chose not to examine too closely.
They met properly 6 months later at a community fundraiser where Dashiell was volunteering and Prosper arrived with a colleague. They recognized each other immediately and stood for a moment in the particular silence of 2 people who already know something true about each other before the ordinary conversation begins. "You changed my tire," she said. "You read every word," he said. She smiled, a real one, the kind she didn't distribute freely. "I shouldn't have been on that highway at all. I had a dinner in the city, but I drove the back route because I needed to think." "I was 20 minutes late leaving the depot," he said. "Lena needed her bear found before I could go." They both understood, without saying it aloud, the fragile mathematics of ordinary moments, how much depends on what a 4-year-old leaves on the floor, on which road a tired person chooses. "Your daughter has good people around her," Prosper said quietly. "I want you to know I saw that, even in 14 pages of documents." Dashiell looked at her. "My mother says that the measure of a person is what they do when no one's watching and nothing's at stake." Prosper was quiet a moment. Then, "She sounds like someone worth knowing." "She'd say the same about you," he said. Character is not what we perform. It is what we do on empty highways when we are tired and no one has asked and there is nothing to be gained. Stop for people. Show up without being asked. You never know whose life you are quietly holding together or whose eyes are taking careful note. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.